Hi, I'm an old guy and I do maths, and there are clues everywhere here, but how do we make sense of them? A linear function has a gradient of 2, and 2 points, 2, 3, and 5, 9, are on that line. Okay, so let's start with that. Just a rough drawing here. 2, 3, we'll say is about there. And 5, 9, we'll say is about there. We don't know where this passes through the y axis. We know that it's got a gradient of 2, which is really useful. We'll connect these dots. A perpendicular line passes through the midpoint of those 2 points. So it does this. And that's a right angle there. And so if the gradient of this is 2, the gradient of this is negative 1 over 2. That's the rule about perpendicular gradients. It's the negative inverse of each one. So if this is negative a half, this will be 2. If this is 2, this will be negative a half. So if M1 equals, what do we call it? Oh, we'll call it M. It's a bit messy, but we'll do that. M2, which is the perpendicular one, is going to equal negative 1 over M. That's how this works. So we know what the gradient of this line is. We'll call it y equals negative a half x. What we need to know is what point it passes through, and that's where this the second clue here, the 2 points, are important, because this passes through the midpoint between these. So how do we find that midpoint? Well, the x value of the midpoint will be 2 plus 5 over 2. So that is 7 over 2. And the midpoint of the y coordinates will be 3 plus 9 over 2, which equals 6. So we have 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, 7 over 2, whichever way you want to write it, and 6. So I'm going to write it as 7 over 2 and 6. So how do we get from here to a decent looking equation here? How do we find what c is? Because this is what we're looking for. We're looking for this intercept, which will give us the equation, and we find that by subbing in these values to the equation that we've got and finding that. So we've got y, we've got x, we need to find c. Just a little word before that about finding this midpoint. I did this really hastily, and I should explain what I did. I took the two x values, I added them together and divided by 2. That gives us the midpoint between this x value and that x value. And I did the same for the y values, added them together, divided by 2. That gave us the midpoint for this, and these two together give us this midpoint. So y is equal to negative 1/2 times 7 over 2. It's a little bit ugly. And y is 6. So we can say that 6 is equal to negative 7 over 4. We just multiply through here. Negative 1 times 7 is 7. 2 times 2 is 2. So negative 7 over 4 plus c. Now, we're getting close to finding our equation. 6 is equal to, now I'm going to break out of the improper fraction here. This is 1 3/4. It says writing 3/3. 1 3/4. 4 goes into 7 once, 3 remainder, and it's negative. So that will give us C. So 6 plus 1 3/4 equals C. Our y-intercept up here is 7 3/4. So our equation is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 7 3/4. That is the answer, and that is how you arrive at it. So there's a bit to do here, but if you break it down into three parts, one is figuring out the gradient of this from the clue that we had. The other is finding the midpoint. Once the midpoint and the gradient are found, it's just a matter of substituting in the value of that midpoint to solve for C, which gives us our equation in the end. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting and useful. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.